Could you argue that the people who are currently in control of that technology, they don't necessarily have bad intentions?
Oh, they definitely have bad intentions because we know
Well, they
what they've
do.
been doing and we know what their plans are.
What are the plans?
Yeah, I don't know
Just
if
to
you want to
take
go
over
there.
the world. Okay.
They already have done that. People just don't know it. That's already happened. No, it's
Okay.
their long-term agenda is uh, global destruction and population reduction. So they have the ability to pretty much wipe out 4 to 6 billion people, and I think that's their intention. And I think that's not far off. I mean, I'm not trying to. I don't want to go into all that. I know
Okay.
exactly what they have, where it's positioned, what buttons they can push, and I've known about it since the mid '90s. So, um, it, I'm a serious person. I left my medical career because I realized how bad this situation is. And I always joke, being an emergency guy with specializing major trauma, I know an emergency when I see one, and we're in an emergency, but nobody knows it. It's the frog
Mm.
being cooked in the pot that's slowly going to boil us. And I mean, parts of this organization, they're so elitist. They want to get rid of people, but there's another weird, kind of kooky, a really weird part of them. I always like telling this story. This is illustrative. 1994, I'm meeting with the Crown Prince of Liechtenstein, Prince Hans Adam von Liechtenstein. And when we first connected, he was at his palace castle, and I was at home. And he said, "We can't talk about this. Let's meet privately." So we eventually met in New York City at the Pier Four Seasons there on Fifth Avenue near Central Park, and met for hours. And he eventually told me that the reason he was funding all the abduction groups and mutilation groups, because he was the one putting all the money behind Bud Hopkins and David Jacobs and Mack and all these people. And most of those guys didn't know that the abductions they were studying were being done by CIA and other operatives using these technologies they've reverse engineered, made to look like aliens. It's all a stagecraft. It's all ridiculously fake. But the gullible public believes it, right? But he said the reason I'm doing that is that we have to have an interplanetary war and Armageddon so Christ will return. And now I'm quoting, and I went, "Excuse me?" And it turned out he was the major funder for a far extreme group at the Vatican known as Opus Dei, and was very devoted to this idea that Christ will only return when enough of the world is destroyed, enough of the population is destroyed that it forces the return of Christ. So I'm there just listening politely, going, WTF, right? What? And then I realized that there's a component of this group that are like that. And then there's another component, and this is the chief mentor for Luis Elizondo, that honestly are Satanists who love destruction, love torture, love to see war, like to see suffering. They're weird people, and I know them. I know who they are. So you have, kind of like two sides of this bizarre, I would call it psychopathic. I mean, medically speaking, the guys are sociopaths and psychopaths, but high functioning. They're smart.
Yeah.
Like Adolf Hitler and his henchmen, I mean, he was a dummy, but the people around him were evil geniuses, right? I mean, the way they executed all that horrible stuff. So you do have this part of human nature, and those are the guys who are aggressive enough that they've taken over all these operations.